Hello, and welcome to my channel, Reading Little Blue Books Out Loud. This is a little blue book. It happens to be Little Blue Book number 417, and it is titled The Nature of Dreams by Hereward Carrington, PhD. Let's see, does it have a copyright date? Nope, no copyright date. These are generally written in the 1920s. So, here we go. The Nature of Dreams, The Dream World, page 1. It has been said that three main problems confronted the mind of primitive man. These were: 1. The difference between living and lifeless bodies. 2. The nature of the figures seen in dreams. And 3. The fate of the individual soul after bodily death. Curiously enough, these three problems still remain with us. The first a biological problem, the second a physiological, and the third a problem for cynical research. The dream people will be discussed briefly in this little book, while the other problems will be found in the books devoted to life and psychical research, respectively. Dreams have been the subject of study and speculation throughout the ages. But it is only within the past few years that a serious and systematic attempt has been made by psychological science to understand and interpret them. But when I say interpret them, it must not be thought that the ordinary popular dream book interpretation is accepted. An alphabetical list of dream interpretations is scientifically impossible, because each dream differs very largely according to the individual case and has to be interpreted differently. It is therefore useless to write describing a vivid dream and ask for its interpretation offhand. Scientific interpretations cannot be given in this manner, except in the most general terms. The dream must be carefully studied and analyzed at first hand, and it often takes days and weeks of careful study to get to the root of a certain dream and to ascertain its true causes. Dreams are symbolical and can be interpreted, but this form of interpretation is a very different thing from a typical dream book alphabet. Dreams are psychic phenomena which we all experience, and are consequently of interest to practically everyone. In our dreams we enter a world all our own, which we share with no one except perhaps the people of our dreams. But even then we are usually the central and dominating figure. Dreams are at any rate sufficiently universal to warrant a brief study of their causation and nature from the point of view of psychological and also psychic science. This I have attempted in the present volume. The mystery of sleep. Dreams, with the exception of so-called daydreams, transpire in a very mysterious state known as sleep. Men, animals, and even plants and vegetables sleep. But we do not know even yet the exact cause and nature of sleep. All sorts of theories have been propounded to explain it. Some authorities have thought that an excess of blood in the brain is the cause of sleep, but it was afterwards proved that exactly the reverse of this is the case. There is much less blood in the brain during sleep than there is... Let me read that again. There is much less blood in the brain during sleep than there is during waking hours. When we wake up and begin to think, more blood flows into the brain. Some have contended that sleep is a pathological condition, but this is disproved by its naturalness and universality. Others have advanced the view that an altered condition of the nervous system is the cause of sleep, but there is no direct proof of this, except in that cases of animals which have been narcoticized, and this is not a natural condition. The usual theory held is that sleep is due very largely to chemical, toxic substances which accumulate within the system and gradually poison it during the day's activities. These slowly poison the body, and sleep is a period of rest required to throw off these poisons and restore a normal condition. There is much to be said in favor of this view, and there is doubtless some truth in it, but is not the whole truth. For, in the first place, sleep may be delayed by an effort of will. Then, artificial sleep is a protracted character, may be induced by means of hypnotism. Again, most men and women seem to need about the same amount of sleep, no matter whether they do a great deal of work during the day or hardly any at all. All this ought to be so, if the purely chemical theory were correct. It is now believed that sleep is a time in which excessive blood pressure is reduced to normal. This may be true, but it does not explain to us the nature or sleep. I think that must mean nature of sleep, nor even its true cause. The psychological factor is very important as a cause of sleep. Dr. Boris Sidis conducted a number of experiments upon animals in which he covered up the eyes and ears of the animals with thick cloths, and the animals very soon fell asleep. Lack of external stimulation is therefore a great factor. Even in the case of man, when all the senses are cut off, there is a tendency to fall asleep. But this in itself is not a sufficient explanation of its cause, much less its inner nature. Professor Claparade, never sure what that little squiggle above the vowel means. Claparade has advanced the view that sleep is a protective mechanism adopted by nature to prevent the body from becoming too exhausted. This is a biological theory of sleep. While this may be true, it does not explain to us the nature of this mysterious state. My own theory is that sleep is a vital process, and that during the hours of rest and sleep, the human brain and nervous system are in some way recharged by vital energy, in much the same way that a storage battery is recharged by electric energy. It is a period during which the vibrations of life become equalized and rendered harmonious. It is also the resting time of the mind and soul. This would perhaps explain to us the unique recuperative power of sleep, for we know that even a few moments' sleep will at times completely refresh us, which would be quite impossible on any of the orthodox theories. But the exact nature of sleep is still a mystery, equally with dreams, which are the mental phenomena that take place during the apparent eclipse of consciousness in the state known to us as sleep. Wow, this is a word I've never seen before. Somnambulism. 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 Among the most curious phenomena presented during sleep are cases of somnambulism, in which the sleepwalker walks, talks, laughs, cries, etc., without waking up, usually knowing nothing of his actions the next morning. There are two kinds of somnambulisms, artificial and natural. Artificial somnambulism is induced by hypnotism, etc., while the so-called natural states occurs spontaneously and is often observed in cases which appear to be in every other respect perfectly normal. There are various kinds of somnambulism. the most common probably being that in which the subject arises from his bed and walks about the house, or even out of doors, either in night clothes or after completely dressing. In the latter case, the subject invariably undresses again before getting back into bed, showing us the force of habit. The somnambulist is, of course, acting out his dream, and his actions are governed by the character of that dream. The people whom he sees and addresses are dream people, and no attention is paid to real persons who speak to him. If conversation is carried on with real people during an attack of somnambulism, it is because the real people have been temporarily endowed with the character and personality of the dream personage. The scenes which are perceived are also dream scenes, and not real ones, even though the eyes may be open. There are indications, however, that a certain amount of visual perception takes place unconsciously, enabling the somnambulist to avoid obstacles placed in his way, cross streets, etc. However, insomuch as he is living in a dream, it is more due to luck than anything else that accidents to the sleepwalker are not more common than they are. If the somnambulist's dream is broken off, there is always a tendency on the dreamer's part to go back and finish it, and the new dream begins just where the old one left off. There are cases on record where the dreamer has finished a word which was broken off in the middle when the subject was purposely awakened. It is often dangerous to awaken the somnambulist too suddenly. The shock to the heart and the whole nervous system is bad, and again the subject himself may suffer considerable fright on finding himself out of bed, and in some distant locality, particularly if this is one of his first experiences of the kind. Some somnambulists have tied their ankles to the bedposts in order to prevent their nocturnal ramblings, but in a few cases known to the writer, the sleepwalker carefully untied all the knots before getting out of bed and went roaming as usual. She knew nothing about it the next morning. Laughing and crying in dreams usually indicate the character of the dream itself, the former representing a pleasurable and the latter an unhappy experience. Talking in dreams is very common among children, whose dreams are as a rule more vivid than the dreams of adults. In many cases, an onlooker can enter into conversation with the dreamer and obtain a good knowledge of the dream process by a discussion or cross-examination of this kind. Somnambulism, or sleepwalking, is to a certain extent an abnormal state, calling for treatment. Some hope, wish, or fear, which is dormant in the subconscious, but not powerful enough to express itself during the waking life. Many utilize the body and carry out its desires during the sleeping state. Any wish or fear of this character, which is powerful enough to produce this effect, is in need of removal, and a suitable course of psychotherapeutic treatment is advisable. In somnambulism, the motor process of the body are utilized instead of the purely sensory processes, so that we act and move instead of merely seeing, hearing, etc. in the dream. Peculiarities of dreams. The ancient Greeks called the souls of those who have died shades. They were supposed to dwell in some bleak, gloomy, and cheerless sphere of activity, envying those yet alive. It is curious to note how closely this conception of an afterlife coincides with our dreams. In fact, it has been suggested that their theological ideas were based upon their dreams, for in sleep the soul was thought to wander in this cheerless land also. When we fall asleep, says Mr. Havelock Ellis, we enter a dim and ancient house of shadow, unilluminated by any direct ray from the outer world of waking life. We are borne about through its chambers without conscious volition of our own. We fall down its moldy and rotten staircases. We are haunted by strange sounds and odors from its mysterious recesses. We move among phantoms we cannot consciously control. As we emerge into the world of daily life again, for an instant the sunlight seems to flash into the obscure house before the door closes behind us. We catch one glimpse of the chambers we have been wandering in, and a few more or less fragmentary memories come back to us of the life we have led there. But they soon fade away in the light of common day, and if a few hours later we seek to recall the strange experiences we have passed through, it usually happens that the visions of the night have already dissolved into memory, into a few shreds of mist we can no longer recollect. This curious characteristic of dreams has often been remarked, viz., the subdued quality of the light. Very rarely do we see sunshine in our dreams. To be sure, there are exceptions to all rules. Some people often dream of sunshine, but in the majority of cases, brilliant light is rare. A dusk, smoke-colored shadow world is ours. Bright colors are relatively infrequent. Most dreams are of one flat color, like smoke. Scarlets, greens, and blues are rare indeed in our dream world. Many persons indeed, in reporting their dreams, have stated that they seem invariably to be in some night scene, but poorly illuminated. Others say they seem to be moving about in a dense fog. From an occult point of view, there may be much truth in these statements, as we shall presently see. Another peculiarity of the dreams experienced by many individuals is that the people all seem to be two-dimensioned. That is to say, they have length and breadth, but no thickness. They resemble people cut out of cardboard, like the little images constructed for the toy theaters played with by children. Others again assert that most of the people they see are transparent, while still others state that the people they see in their dreams are lifelike, opaque, and solid. Which are yours, reader? Are your dreams colored or shadow-like? See if you can note and remember this when you go to sleep and dream tonight. The psychology of dreams. How the mind works when it is dreaming is one of the most curious things in nature. For millions of years men have dreamed. For years dreams have been studied. But even yet there is much to be learned concerning them. What causes our dreams? There are many factors at work, of which only a few can be touched upon here. First of all, however, we know that physical stimuli or sensations will serve to induce them. Dr. Murray was one of the first to study this subject in detail. He found that if he were cold, he dreamed of ice and snow, or of being on the street naked. If he were too warm, he dreamed of tropical scenes, or even of fire. He secured the assistance of a friend, who sat beside him quietly as he slept, and conducted a number of experiments upon him. He tickled him with a feather, pinched his ear, pricked him with a pin, made faint noises, or held under his nose various odorous substances. All these sensations were carried to the brain of the sleeping man, and caused various dreams clearly traceable to the stimulus employed. The mind, however, does not merely record the sensation. It symbolizes and elaborates and dramatizes it. It weaves the external stimulus into a sort of story, which serves to make up the dream. This is one of the most extraordinary powers of the dream consciousness. Thus, if a door slammed, it was interpreted in the dream as a pistol shot. But not only that, the dreaming mind wove a complete romance of its own around this sound. For the subject dreamed that he met a man in a tavern with whom he quarreled. They agreed to a duel. They met on the dueling ground, details were arranged by their seconds. They paced off their distances. Finally, they both fired at one another. These shots coincided with the slamming of the door. This incident also brings home to us one very remarkable point. That is, the enormous rapidity of dreams. For between the slamming of the door and the waking up only a moment elapsed. The noise woke the man, and yet that brief interval was long enough for the dream mind to plot this long story, and to dramatize the sound and weave about it a whole romance. Some dreams, therefore, are very brief in their duration, and it has been proved that dreams which seem to us to consume whole hours actually take but a fraction of a second. This is a very significant fact, for it seems to show us that the human mind, when unencumbered by the material brain in the ordinary way, can think and function with enormous celerity. Okay, I think we'll stop there.